Right. Thank you very much for everyone for joining us today. I think we'll start getting things kicked off in the interest of time. Everybody else who wants to join us today will find us, as we say in Zambia. They'll find us as we are rolling this out. So thank you so much. We have an exciting coach meet for you today. Nankonde will be present and will be here. She's just running late and has just texted me and asked us to already kick this off. Very excited to be here today. We have a very special guest launching our new coach spotlight. Just from the side of Zanga, I think there are two little bits of news we'd like to share with you and the community. So, number one was about the ICF Converge 2025 in San Diego, California, that was held last month, which was amazing. I know some of you were there, including today's speaker. And it was a pleasure for Nankonde to meet all of you, to interact, and to also represent Africa. Zanga has been the first African company that has actually exhibited at ICF. So definitely a milestone, definitely a pleasure, and it's great to be able for us to bring this to people beyond our own continent. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your well wishes. The second thing is that we've been hard at work updating our training and certification materials for the Zanga Certified Coaching Accreditation. We've been working with very excellent instructional designers in order to update the materials, to make them more expansive and to take on board a lot of the feedback we have gotten from you. So you can look forward to that very, very soon. We will be launching this updated material for you soon. And the focus here is not just to enhance and make the certification process better, but also to give you materials that support your practical execution of these Zanga tools in your coaching practice and training. So that's something we're really excited about sharing with you going forward. And that is something you can expect from us. Launching soonish. No date set yet for this, but it's something we're working towards. And I have been privy to some of the developments, and we're getting very close to having something we can share with you, our coaching community. With that said, I would like to invite our coach, Adeyanju, who will be launching, and the very, very first coach to be featured in our coach spot. Welcome, Adeyanju, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever it is you're joining from. Um, Totally excited. I'm chuffed, to be able to, just share my journey into coaching, my philosophy, how I'm finding, the Zanga metrics and offerings, and I guess, what the future holds. Amadeus, how many minutes do I have? So I'm not just yakking away. Amadeus, how many minutes do I have?
As many minutes as you need. So take your time.
Okay. I'm structured. So let's see where I am, in the next 15 minutes. I'll just keep my eyes on the time. All right. So my journey into coaching actually started with an email with the title, "You have been nominated to participate in the Coca-Cola Hellenic Certificate for Internal Coaching Program." And I wondered, okay, what is this? Reading through, it was an intensive, I think it was about 9 months program. I was excited, but then when I, did a double click into what it required, I was just like, what in the world is this and why me? For the first cohort, it was just two of us in Nigeria. Coca-Cola Hellenic is made up of, it's an anchor bottling company for the Coca-Cola company and operating in 30 countries now. They were operating in 28 countries then. So off we went. We had two in-person workshops. In between, those two workshops, you had to have completed a certain number of coaching, working with colleagues internally. It was 25 coaching hours, before you could get the certificate. Also, it involved reflection, learning sheets, and I'm going to come back to that. And I think that practice really, really set me up in terms of my coaching practice. Then you had to sit with your line manager to share what the impact has been, and how this is going to contribute to you're being a better leader and also enabling other leaders. And both of us were totally clueless when we sat together to begin to look at what success would look like. So off I went with another colleague. It was exciting. I remember, in one of the training sessions, the facilitator, who later became a coach and a very good friend, asked if anybody wanted to be coached. And against my natural self, I, raised my hand, and that was my very first experience of coaching, and it felt as if I was floating. She was just having me envisage what my life would be like at 70, and there I was sitting with my legs crossed at a beach house and just imagining, a very full life that was still growing, even at that time. So I really found, those conversations very intriguing, particularly working with colleagues who knew nothing about coaching, and I had to explain to them what it was. And of course, I was armed with the GROW model and a couple of other frameworks, and explaining what it was and coaching them and trying to coach them. I remember one particular conversation. Good heavens, it was a struggle. 15 minutes into the session, I just told her, you know what? I am struggling. I think we should just have a conversation. I'm not going to record this as a coaching conversation. And we chatted, and looking back now, I think, she was wondering, okay, how is everything I'm saying not going to be used against me, despite, all the spiel around confidentiality and all of that. But there was one particular lady who made a really profound impression, on me. After the coaching session, and I would not say that that session with the newbie was what made that kind of like 180 turnaround, with regards to her performance, her outlook, everything. I wouldn't attribute to the newbie Yoju of about 10 years ago, but I literally saw someone kind of like shed every preconceived notion about herself, somebody who really believed, and her trajectory within the organization just went literally like, in steps, leaps, and bounds. And I was just like seeing, and I thought, good heavens, could this have come from a conversation and helping someone see themselves? So there I was continuing, finished all the sessions, the reflective learning sheets, 8 of them, had to do an assessment at the end of the training program. And there I was with my certificate, certified internal coach. Was very excited, loved it. And, still with my day-to-day job. I then noticed a particular colleague, he was a sales director then, I noticed him in meetings. He will come into the meetings, the way he would sit, the way he will comport himself. I think the final straw for me was a leadership meeting that we had. And I thought to myself, there are two CEOs in this room. And I was just, looking at him. He was sales director and looking at the GM, the CEO of the company. And I was just like, there are two leaders, two CEOs in this meeting. What am I not getting? No announcement has been made, with regards to this guy. What's going on? So the next morning, because the meeting ended pretty late, the next morning before 8 o'clock, I remember just, barging into his office. The poor chap was still setting up a system. And I said, Matthew, what is going on with you? There's something going on with you. I can see a change. What's going on? And was like, I don't know. I really don't know. And I was like, there is something going on with you. I want to know what it is and how you got there. And he said the only new thing, that he's been working on was a leadership development program where talent, senior talent, were pushed through. And I said, yes, I did the same program, along with the CEO. We did that, 2 years prior. And I definitely, I didn't experience this. And the CEO, obviously, this is not the kind of experience. And he now said, oh, there was an addition to it that they added coaching. So for a year, each of the leaders had a coach working with them. And there I just marched straight into the CEO's office and said, I need a coach. And because, at this time, I was at a career crossroad. I was wondering what's next, for me. And incidentally, remember, I mentioned that the lady who facilitated the internal certification, coaching certification program became my coach. So I reached out to her to, tell her that I needed someone to work with. This was my first time, working with a coach and me paying for it by myself, the business, later on. And the experience with her, the depth of questions, Lisa was and still is an MCC. This was over 10 years ago. And I remember, maybe like the second session, we were talking, and then she just asked, what do you want written on your epitaph? I was like, for crying out loud. In my mind, before I really didn't say anything, but my Nigerian mind was like, God forbid, I'm talking to you about career crossroad. You're telling me about, a tombstone. What's going on, with this lady and all of that. But that conversation really got me thinking and thinking about my life, realizing that, that career crossroad, what I was about was much bigger than the career crossroad. And I I sat down thinking, what do you have on a typical tombstone? The name and the titles, father, son, grandfather, da da da, and all of that, and the dates. You may be able to put in a short statement of a life well lived or something. And I thought to myself, is this how my life is going to be summed up? And I was like, no way. I don't want to see daughter, wife, mother, grandmother, full stop. I need to have something that is reflective of the life that anyone who sees it would want to find out about the impact and the kind of life I lived. So that, really got me. I can't remember everything else after that coaching session, after the engagement, but that for me was really life altering and began, for me to begin to see the power of coaching. Fast forward 2 years after that, the um, career crossroad, wasn't fully answered. And I worked with another coach that the business, provided. And I pivoted, to sales from a support function. I was heading public affairs and communications, prior to that. And I moved to sales and gosh, it was tough, particularly the people aspect of it. I was the only woman in a team of about 12. The sales director had 11 of us reporting to him. And I was struggling with both the leader of the team and a couple of colleagues. So I reached out to a coach locally, and I think, this, without really realizing it, this was my first entry into high context cultures and low context cultures. And, my work with, my coach really opened my eyes to how these two cultures were, and I was able to navigate, my relationships, with my colleagues, then both my manager and other colleagues. So did that for 3.5 years. And remember, when I wanted to move into sales, I wanted a role that will position me for general management. Incidentally, after I moved to sales, that what next bug hit me so hard that I was charting my um, my career path right there and then. 6 months into my role, 6 months into me being the key accounts director for Nigeria, managing, a portion of sales, I was asked with other colleagues to join an assessment center. And I remember going to meet my boss then to say, you know what, you're setting me up for failure. I'm less than 6 months into the role. I'm going to be sitting with people who have an average 15 years experience, and it was just like, no, this is really about your potential and for you to see what's, available. Anyway, we do the assessments, and a final um, meeting, you sit with like 8 leaders from the executive committee at group level, GMs of countries, and they're asking me what next. And I start talking about a life outside of NBC, and the region director, who is now the group CEO, and said, "Oh, we love the passion with which you're talking, but we actually mean life here. What's next for you here?" And after that, my boss was like, what were you talking about? But then I remember after this, I decided, you know what, I am going to really explore this coaching world. Remember, I had done an internal certification program, and I went on the ICF website and saw that the hours that I had, I needed to get more coach training hours, of course, definitely client hours in order to get the ACC credentials. So I, applied, I actually registered additional training. Then in 2015, we didn't have accredited coach training institutes in Nigeria. Now we have about 5 or 6. So I had to go to the UK for 5 months, 4 days every month. I mean, it was capital intensive. I spoke to my boss and it was just like, you're crazy. Who embarks on something that is totally unrelated to their, to what it is that they're doing, less than 1 year into a new role? And I was just like, you know what, I am going to do this. Yes, I'm asking for days off, and it says take it out of your lead days. And I was like, fine, no worries. I am going to do. And I think, that was one of the best decisions, that I took. 3 years after that, when I was winding down, leaving NBC, looked at my hours and saw that I had just 70 hours and needed 30. So walked up to my boss again to say, can I amend my KPIs to include coaching? I was like, sure, why not? So we did, and got additional 30 hours before I left NBC. So the last month, I actually applied for the ACC certification and got that. And there I was, 1st of January 2018, a new coach with logos and everything blazing, and like, I'm ready for the world. Here I am, and all of that. Reality set, because I thought, hey, first organization, everybody's going to be looking out for me. Hey, a coach who's got 20 years corporate experience at senior level. Come on, what's there not to love? And realize that the business of coaching and delivering coaching are two separate things, and you do need to be very versed in, building your coaching business. So we started building my coaching business, doing associate work, and this is 2025. I think it was 2023, yes, went for the ICF Converge conference. And on the app, you see different, all the sessions and everything. I saw Nakonde's session and I was like, high context. I was like, let's take a look at it. I mean, the thing was 10, 15 minutes into the session, if you're not really feeling it, I can just pivot and go somewhere else. But the very first statement she made hooked me, and I was just like, what in the world is this lady talking about? When she asked that question, when you're sitting in front of a client, how many people are in the room? And I was like, do the maths. If it's one-on-one, it's just 2 people in the room. Anyways, I really was intrigued and to understand, this concept, of high context and low context cultures, and how do you support leaders in both cultures? For me, an awareness and understanding of, these cultures and the settings and the impact, they have on individuals on their leadership journey is extremely important. And I will find, as I'm working with clients who are in both cultures, particularly through the associate work, I'm thinking back on my own leadership journey and wondering, oh my gosh, if I had half this understanding, some of the mistakes or some of the decisions or indecisions that occurred, I would have done things differently. But hey, there is no one can't cry over spilled milk. But right now, I realize and I look at the African continent. At times when I speak with colleagues, I'm like, guys, we're not each other's competition. We have a saying in my culture that the sky is the horizon, is so big that birds fly without their wings, touching. If we think of, and that's my rationale, if I think first of the state in which I am in Nigeria, the commercial capital, Lagos. Lagos has a population of over 26 million. And I look at businesses, even in my locality or my municipality, my business can't even serve, 1/10 of them. Nigeria has 36 states. I am only operating in one state. And then I tell people Africa has 54 countries, thereabout. We are still in one state, in one country. Imagine what would happen if we're able to, to spread. And that for me is my drive. How does my business and how do I partner with coaches, on the African continent that we're able to support our leaders, to really be the best that they can be, impacting, the continent and also impacting globally. And as I focus on leaders over the last 2 years, I'm actually now focusing particularly on female leaders. For me, it becomes very important that they're operating in full awareness and understanding, and also they're in cognizance of, their abilities. And when I look at the Zanga, African metrics, it's the competency pillars and the cultural awareness, the cultural model. I feel that is such a natural fit. And for me, it's not a us versus approach, when you look at, the Zanga that is born out of Africa, but it's about enabling leaders to compete locally and globally. So I mentioned that I am focusing primarily now on female leaders. And it's quite interesting. One lives in, you're playing back your life. The coach that I said I worked with whilst I was in sales, there was a day she asked me if I would, what my niche was. And I was like, well, not so sure and all of that. And she says, think about working with female executives. And I scoffed at the idea, like, nah, at all. And here I am, focusing, really supporting, female leaders, helping them navigate leadership transition. My persona is that accomplished female leader who is about to or has just taken a senior role, that person has an enviable track record, verifiable results. The person is leading other leaders, teams, or even a business unit. Everything looks good on the outside. On the inside, there's an internal crisis going on. She's constantly overthinking, overanalyzing, second guessing decisions. She's doubting herself despite proven achievements. She's almost becoming a shell of herself. She's struggling with confidence. Speaking out in meetings or presenting in front of large audiences is quite, is daunting. So she's unsure and unclear about her leadership identity and, of course, the resulting impact as a leader. And for me, working with such women, this is really about being seen, acknowledged, and known for the value that they create within the organization and the larger ecosystem. That person becomes a fearless and strategic advocate for herself and others. The person is not bound or limited by her environment, the culture, societal norms, and expectations. And, over the years, my coaching philosophy is really deeply rooted in the statement that says what we do and how we show up is really an expression of who we are. And it's really about, who you are on the inside, manifesting or showing up on the outside and how you interact with people. And I think that, how can we do with impact, with clarity, purpose, and even scale that if we don't have an understanding of who we are. So I'm very big on self-awareness, and I use psychometric assessments to help surface behavioral styles. My company, the Source Coaching Limited, our tagline is transforming you in form and in function. So it's, transformation from within and without. And on this journey, I think what really resonated with me when I was reading about, Zanga, that phrase, the leadership journey, realizing that it is a journey and not a destination. It's a journey, whether you're in corporate or you've moved out of corporate. And looking at, the leadership journey, I love the competency pillars. It's very robust in and end to end, from self to business impact. And I love the way that, you have that pillar on execution, working with clients, particularly in corporates. For me, it's very important, right from the onset that map those coaching goals to organizational goals. How does this leader's transformation, how does it impact, the business? Of course, the leader has a personal impact, but more importantly, or also important, is how do you tie that to the organizational goals? So helping the leader unpack, the pillars and their professional proficiency levels across quite enabling. With cultural model, I think there's still a lot for me to unpack in that model. I haven't used the 360 yet. I am so happy that I'm actually, submitting an RFQ, and I have included the 360 because I'm itching, to use it and to see how that really kind of like, cements the leader's understanding of themselves. Okay, so I will round up in like 3 to 5 minutes. In terms of my coaching impacts, what I've observed, in the people and the organizations that I've worked with, as our tagline, says, that we enable transformation within and without. One thing that I see is that self-awareness that is really deepened. I also see fearless boldness, I would call it, that is unique to every individual. People do things that they thought were tall dreams, before. I had a client that I see almost every week. She was my client 2 years ago, and when we started, I mean, she said it clearly. She's very into herself, averse to the spotlight, doesn't want to put herself out. She was transiting, from corporate to, she wasn't really sure if she wanted to work with another corporate. So we were really walking around her transition, or she wanted to promote her own organization. So, of course, posting professionally on any social media platform was a no-no where she was concerned. To after the engagement, I see this lady, she is out there on LinkedIn. She's speaking. She's going from one local to one international conference. Every time I see her, and I'm like, what's going on? She says, no, that's this is me. And it just gives me joy, when you see that people have agency and they're able to their journey and self-advocacy, as well. Two of my favorite testimonials, and I would, read them out, that I have received are one person's that you have a way of allowing streams of consciousness to flow. I mean, that really floored me. And another person said, I value observing and experiencing how you provide space for me to explore areas of development without me feeling judged. That is me. I see what my business is all about come to life, that transformation within and without, and people, owning their journeys and living life on their own terms. With regards to my relationship with Zanga and the assessments and, the various offerings, it still is. I am, really, really looking forward to how all the offerings, within the Zanga portfolio will help my clients and also really promote organizational. Like I told Nakonde when we first met, the stalking has not ended. It's still continuing. So seeing her, I'm sure she told you when we were at the Converge, there was a particular session, apart from the fact that I was tired, I just sat at her stand, and it was just great being able to see someone from Africa, a fellow coach, sitting and exhibiting and talking about, the offerings, all the assessments and what, Zanga stood for. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And thank you, and a round of applause to you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. It was amazing. Wow, what a journey. And there are things that really resonate with me personally as well. The transformational aspect of coaching. How confusing it can be when somebody asks you, what's your legacy, right? They have you thinking about what would people say at your funeral, right? Like, why are we talking about my funeral? And just, your journey, the dedication, the personal sacrifice, and also where you see Zanga supporting you and adding value to what you do. We look forward to supporting you and all our coaches with our product offering, which, continues to grow. We have our employee engagement survey. We have launched the French version of our assessment for our Francophone coaches. So thank you so much. Nankonde is on the call, and I'd like to hand over to her to say a few words. Thank you, Coach.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adeyanju. I was actually listening in on my phone before transitioning here. And I think what's so key is the coach journey and who you are as a coach is so much influenced by what you aspire for yourself, but what is already in you. And the only way I can put it is the Zanga approach and the Zanga tools only amplify your intended impact and approach. And I feel that in that lens, that perspective, it has to lean on the coach. None of this, it doesn't work the other way. None of this actually comes to put the coach forward, but rather it's the coach first and how these tools then contributes to your impact. So I don't want to take too long. I actually want to open up the floor, Amadeus, for questions from the audience, because we've got coaches here. We've got Zanga certified coaches. I would love to open the floor for questions, comments.
Awesome. This is an informal kind of session. Please, you're free to unmute yourself, switch on your video if you want, and fire away.
I'm seeing some comments in the chat from Stephanie. And I saw some emojis from, I think it was Daisy, but please go ahead, Stephanie.
I only have to say that this was such a great presentation. I didn't think about time. I was really with you in the journey, and it's so good. And what was especially talking to me or speaking to me was that you were saying we are not in competition. I really feel for that, because I'm in this journey also for some time, and there are a few coaches only who are in this dynamic, and I really appreciate you saying this. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Stephanie. Truly, when we're not, and when we realize that, we realize also, apart from building our practices, collaboration also becomes an offering, if I can use that, that we can use to scale and have greater impact, leveraging on each other's strengths.
Yes, that's very inspiring to me, and I hope in the French African continent part we will also have this dynamic, because we are struggling with this right now. Thank you.
All right. I wish I had pursued my love for French. I did it at all levels, but what floored me was the comprehension. I had to write about a plane crash, and I forgot the word plane, avion, and it threw me off. I did write about a crash. I wrote about a bus crash, complete, with the journey and all of that, but it just threw me off and I never went back. So sorry about
Madam Daisy, please go ahead.
Hi everybody. Hi Adeyanju, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think something that struck me in what you said was how you had a client who went well ahead, above and beyond your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what sat with me is, as much as we as coaches like to bring awareness to clients about what it is within themselves they want to see transformation on, that awareness can be reframed to say ignition, because it doesn't stop at awareness. Now I know, where I was coming unstuck. The fact that it fires them up, it takes them a step further. And that should feed back into our own awareness as to, I think there's multiple awarenesses, and that's my terminology, that as a coach, as you ask questions incisively, certain things come up for the client. But when it comes up for the client, it feeds back into your own awareness as to the direction you should be taking, because it isn't a monodirection. It may be multiple areas where they're unearthing their own transformation. So that was quite powerful for me. Writing your epitaph, it feels very un-African, but in fact,
Yes.
it's really what legacy do you want to leave? We like to use the safe words and not the provocative words that make us uncomfortable. But maybe we also need to coach ourselves into daring to go into those areas in which we're uncomfortable. And why are we uncomfortable? I also just wanted to say, Nankwande, you're so right. Whatever tools we use, coaching models, using, Zanga, it really builds upon our world paradigm, where we're coming from, our inner world, what it is that's really singing to our souls. And that's why I'm in coaching. I didn't at some point know I wanted to be in coaching. I thought I wanted to be in leadership development, but I could not find the perfect fit that allowed Africans to think for themselves. And when I came across coaching, I just thought, oh, this is brilliant, because we already have the brilliance. We just don't know how to couch and frame it so that it is offered to the world unapologetically, and equal, and sometimes more than equal to anybody else out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daisy. I loved, what you said about a framework or something that allows Africans to think for themselves. I actually wrote it down. It's just like, that is so, so powerful. It's not just, thinking for ourselves, but actually also developing agency to get up and do stuff for ourselves, by ourselves.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Again, thank you so much, Coach Adeyanju. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to interact with you, to learn from you, to get your insights and your experience. It's a pleasure, and we love having you in the Zanga community, in the Zanga family. As you said, the journey is not yet over. It is still ongoing. We're still on this journey together, and we really look forward to everything that's ahead of us on this journey. So, if nobody has any other questions, I'd like to hand over to Nankonde to close us out, so to say.
Thank you. And these coach community sessions are for Zanga certified coaches, but we wanted to start seeing, how do we showcase who you are as a coach and how you're applying the tools in a way that brings the professional capabilities of African coaches as well as the African tools. And this is what we're testing and piloting, and we'll continue to do more of, which is why we thought, okay, this session, we may open it up a bit more, but there'll be other sessions which are close to the community because it's part of sort of skills building, exchange and sharing that's linked to just information for the certified coaches. But there's also other opportunities for wider acknowledgement. And so I'm really excited that also Dr. Mithe has joined us as well on this call. But just to kind of hone in on, I've also written it down, a framework that allows Africans to think for themselves and really the agents of thinkers, as coaches, being the agents of thinkers and facilitators, just of that cognitive and emotive or emotional process is really how I kind of bring together the comments, but also the work here. And I call the work here the collective and cumulative impact, with Adeyanju in Nigeria, with Stephanie Burkina Faso, Dr. Mbite in Kenya, we're in Zambia. But you're seeing that the work of this ecosystem is actually building up and giving us a frame and also educating the rest of the world on how to see us. And one of the things I wanted to also share, I know you touched on it, was my feedback and experience to the community from ICF Converge. This picture for me just captured, if you could feel the energy, if you could feel the minority all at once. We were few, but in energy, we were plenty. And I don't say it negatively that we were few, because wherever we go, we represent an entire continent. But in physical location and number, it was very interesting to understand, even within ICF, there is a positioning of the African coaches through their representation in the chapters. And to see that the leadership of the chapters showed up and is carving and creating a space for the conversation to continue to be global. And that your presence there is so key, because at this global stage level where you could see out of the 1,400 delegates, how many of them were representing our space, not just physically, but also mentally and culturally. And being there, what I find always interesting is that the nature of coaching means that we're not going in to impose, we're not going in to disrupt in a toxic way, but we're actually present in a strategic way to inform and also contribute at the same level. That is how I felt it. It wasn't disruptive, it wasn't toxic, it was just very clear that there's something going on this continent. The chapters are very present, their leadership is very active. And to be the first African company to have a booth at an exhibition at ICF Converge was also a learning curve for us, because we realized also, as much as our presence was seen and felt, how do we continue to position ourselves in consultation with you on the type of information and materials we should be sharing at these events? Yes, Zanga had the booth, but we were very clear that when you come to coaching and you're looking at African coaches, they are all over the continent. And they are represented through some of the countries that have chapters. We represent some of them and the tools, but we actually represent the face of the future of development and leadership on the continent. And these are the agents doing the work. And so even moving forward, thinking of strategically how we even co-create the booth, how we actually look at getting into the agenda certain experiences that allow us to influence and also plant the roots more solidly. And so I wanted to share that particular picture, because for me, this was the representation, but it was also a very clear message. And at a very high, elegant level of professionalism and engagement of the African coaches that are, and the capacity we have on the continent. The other thing I wanted to share is, as much as this was from the perspective of us being there and showcasing, the flip side is we have to all hold our own. How do we do that? Because we must continue to be professional. We must continue to have impact, because at the end of the day, like a bricklayer, you're only as good as your last house. If the transformation doesn't happen or is not happening, the reference or the highest recommendation are the walking transformation, or the people who go on to do great things, and to showcase that whilst our context is unique, our skill set is global and our capacity expands way beyond our borders. And so the other side I got from this was, how do we continue to contribute to the professionalization of coaching on the continent, and showcase the coaches, but also give back the scorecard to the coaches to say, when you want to be global, be ready for what that comes with. It's another set of eyes. It's another standard that you're actually are now part of. And how can we ensure that actually awareness and visibility will always continue? But when you're on that stage now, when you've been showcased, you actually need to deliver. And how do we continue to support each other to deliver and demonstrate those results? For me, that was my takeaway from ICF, was really okay. So if we're sitting and standing next to global coaches, can we have that personal reflection and self-awareness for ourselves of where do I need to elevate my game? Where do I need to actually work on my positioning of my practice, and clarify my purpose to first to me, and then how I'm by extension communicating it so that my niche and where I play and have impact is clear. And that's why it ties back to there's no competition because we're all unique in our callings, in our purpose, in our practices. But we're on a global stage. And I think it's so important to continue that duality of growth. As you develop others, you develop yourself. As you help other people lift their game, how do you lift your own game? And that is something we took back also from the perspective of not just Zanga, but even as individual coaches, and then the tools that we're putting out there. Because we can break a ceiling and move into a new level, but to stay and go beyond now requires an upgrade, and that continuous upgrade is even speaking to how we're about to release the new certification training materials. It's like a phone. We give iPhone a lot of credit to be on iPhone 17, but just as ourselves in our practice, what version are you on of you as a coach? What version are you on of you as a coaching business? And also as a collective and community, what version are we on as a collective? And that's what I just wanted to leave everybody to think and reflect about. What does it mean, the next level of my game? Me as a coach, in my own authority, in my own purpose, because that for me is the greatest gift I can give, is to be the best of me. The rest is a byproduct. And so, Amadeus, I just want to end there in terms of my thoughts and perspective and feedback, and continued encouragement to the community as a part of the Zanga team, but also as an ally in the work and our collective work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. You have summarized it, you have concluded it, you've brought it to its rightful end. Thank you so much, Coach Adeyanju, for sharing your experience, your journey, and your insights. We honor you, and we are honored that you would share this with us as a community. Thank you very much, Nankondo, for sharing your insights and your perspective, and for giving the perfect summarization to this coach meet. We thank you for the time everybody has spent on this call with us today. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate your presence. As always, we appreciate the camaraderie, the exchange, and the encouragement. As you go out there and you build transformative leaders and transformational leaders in Africa and beyond, we're here to support you. Thank you so much. We will be having our next coach meet, the last coach meet of the year, in next month in December, the second week, or should I say the second Thursday of December as always. And we will have another coach that we will be featuring and who will be coming in and sharing his experiences. But we will be keeping you up to date through the usual channels, our WhatsApp group, our mailing list. If you're not in the WhatsApp group yet, please let me know, drop me an email, and I will make sure you get added. Thank you so much. I'm mindful of time. We love you, respect, and have a wonderful evening. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.